Hello friends, welcome back. Join me today on a lovely rainy day in Wales, hence the umbrella. And I was reminded yesterday by my partner that 5 years ago today, we were in the middle of a lockdown. And in the UK, we weren't allowed to leave we weren't supposed to leave our houses, but we certainly weren't allowed to drive anywhere to get our exercise, or however it was referred to at the time. And we're quite fortunate because we're very close to the countryside, and so we had the opportunity to do some local walks, which gave us a great appreciation for the local area, one that I certainly didn't have before. And it brought back this memory of how many of us struggled throughout the lockdowns because we lost that sense of control that we had over being able to go places that we wanted to and do things that we wanted to do, and how much stress that caused people. And I took it a step further and I was thinking about how much of my life, I wouldn't have used this term at the time, but how much of my life I wanted to be in control, and I had this idea that I could control my circumstances and the people around me, and I could control everything. And of course, it's a very naive perspective because I can't do that. But if you're in that position where the desire to have control over your life is causing you some or a great degree of hardship or discomfort, then this video is for you. And I look back on how my life has unfolded and how my desire to stay in control, really, my desire to control the circumstances, stemmed primarily from a very negative worldview, a worldview that says people are out to get me, or I'm going to walk into some kind of conflict or hardship. And when I started to look at that bit more closely, I realized that that voice in my head, the one that I normally point to, I can't today, the voice in my head, I have a very vivid imagination and always have. And it served me well. But for the most part, it's been uncontrolled. And so I would be imagining my bosses at work pulling me into an office and telling me off for something. I would imagine my partner telling me that she's cheated on me. I would imagine my bank calling me up and telling me that all my money's been taken out. I would imagine someone stealing my car or getting sick. And without realizing it, so much of my mental space was being consumed by this very negative program, which was just running on repeat in the background, that I was convinced, I was living with the conviction that these things would happen. And so naturally, my response to that was to try and avoid those things. And how could I have known any better, right? And so many of us are doing that without realizing it. We have this negative, undesirable outcome playing in our minds that seemingly suggests that the outcome that we most fear is guaranteed to happen, and that the only thing we can do is damage limitation. And the lengths that some of us will go to limit that damage is quite considerable. And I shan't go into the things that I've done, but I'm certainly not proud of them. Of course, I've since learned and discovered to forgive myself for those things, because if that's what I was working with in the moment, then I can only act to the best of my knowledge. And so any of you out there, if you feel like you need to be in control of life, then my invitation to you is to take a moment to just think about what your future looks like and feels like, what kind of future you're anticipating in your mind. Whether it's a feeling, whether it's a picture, whether it's words, or a combination of those things, just consider whether or not the thing that you're avoiding has in fact happened, or if it's in fact a product of your vivid imagination. And if you come to a point where you can witness the imagination doing the things that it does, then that's a huge step and is not to be underestimated. Because the first step to any change is awareness. And if we're aware of what we're doing to ourselves by the use of our imagination, then it starts to create some distance. It starts to create this space between the things which we picture in our minds and our response to them. And there's a really great book that was written after the Second World War by a man named Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. It's not a particularly long book, but he refers to something in his writing. He says, between every stimulus and every response there is a space. And that space is where our choice exists. And for you, as someone who may be fearing an undesirable outcome, that space is the space which arises when awareness comes. When awareness illuminates things which may previously have been unseen. And so the invitation is firstly to see that, to consider that maybe your desire for control is a desire to avoid an uncomfortable or unpleasant outcome, and that if you're aware of the outcome that you're trying to avoid and you can see it clearly, then the next step is to consider that anything which is a product of the imagination is the thing that you're giving your energy to. It's the thing that you're casting awareness on, whether you realize it or not. And whether or not you continue to want to do that. And you might say, but how do I change it? Well, that's something we will talk about and we'll explore in future videos. And I will share with you some ways and means that becomes a possibility, as it has been for me. But the desire, come back to this again, the desire to be in control stems from the belief that all outcomes will not be in your favor. And therefore you have to do something to fight, or to struggle, or to win and overcome. And that's why so many of us in life are doing just that. That's why so many of us in life are trying to manipulate the people and the circumstances around us. It's not deliberate in the sense of it's not conscious. We don't do these things because we think they're going to, because we want to cause other people harm. And some of you may disagree, and I respect your right to do that, but we're not doing it because we want to cause harm to people. We're doing it because we want to avoid harm for ourselves. And when we're in fear, when we're in pain, we become rather selfish. That's the fight or flight response. That's what it does. It narrows our perspective to such a degree that we can't see the pain that we're causing others. And so, if you're in that position, there's no need to be hard on yourself, because in reality you don't know better. And I'm not saying that to put you down. I'm saying that because the perspective that we hold in the moment is the perspective which drives us forwards. However, pleasurable or painful that perspective may be, it will drive us forwards, and our actions are a consequence of that. So when we start to understand what's driving us, our actions become, well, they make a lot more sense because they have perspective. There's a reason that we can see that we're doing the things that we're doing. And whether it's logical or not doesn't matter. It's not about that. My intention here is to not lead you through the entire process step by step because, well, in 10 minutes, I don't think that's possible. I don't know your story. I don't know where you've been, and I don't know where you're going. Nor is it my business to tell you. But I can illuminate parts of the process and help you perhaps to gain some insight into some of the things which may currently be largely unknown. They may be uncertainties, they may be things which happen that you don't really understand. And so if you can gain some small amount of insight into any of those things, it will ripple out and create tremendous changes in your life. And that's my hope for all of you. As always, I really appreciate you watching, and I appreciate that so many of you have been watching my videos and been subscribing and commenting, and all of these things is really valuable to me because, as I mentioned before, and I'll keep saying this because I think it's a point worth mentioning over and over again, is that between you and I there is a machine, and that machine doesn't care what value you receive from me, and it doesn't care what I'm saying. What it cares about is your degree of engagement, and your degree of engagement determines the value it perceives exists in these videos. And so if there's anything that you can do, suddenly very windy, if there's anything that you can do to help more people who are in the same position as you, who may derive similar benefit from these videos, it's to engage in some way, whether it's by leaving a comment of some description, whether it's by liking a video. It's entirely up to you, but I appreciate all of the interactions. And I do hope that next time the rain has eased, because it's quite difficult having two hands occupied, but it's fun. I like a challenge. So I shall see you on the next one. Until then, I wish you well, and thanks for watching.